Good afternoon. This is the Devar Torah on Parshas. It's a double parsha, actually, Tazria-Metzora, which is the usual um, situation when you have a regular year, not a leap year, with 13 months, as it will be next year. And if you look at these parshas, on one sense, they seem to be very technical, dealing with some spiritual diseases with the general category of known as saras, for speaking evil speech, different types. And it goes through the whole procedure of how one identifies that, when how purified gets, and what steps have to be taken when it happens. And then Parshas to the Metzora starts at least with dealing with how one cures somebody who has saras, which is incorrectly has been incorrectly translated as leprosy. Which is a totally separate disease of non-spiritual of a non-spiritual nature, and that's one thing. And on that level, and then it goes on to speak about other types of levels of types of spiritual impurity. And very interesting is, as I said, it's very technical and dry. However, if you look at it on a deeper level, it's really dealing with the prerequisites for the Messianic era and what the Messianic era will look like. I'm going to give a few aspects of this. And another time I will be doing a full share on this to expand on a lot of things. So this is going to be more of a brief outline sample of it. And to give some context here, first of all, we have to look at the different exiles. The first and second exile, I'm calling Egypt the first exile, first type of exile, lasted for 210 years. I know it says there will be people in the land that's not ours, 400, that's stealing from the date of Yitzchak's birth, but the actual 210 years. Now, we then have the first exile from Bavel, Persia, when we were exiled from our land, 70 years. Now we have one that is been going on for almost 2,000 years, 1,900 some odd years, and hopefully the end is in sight. Hopefully we're in Negev from the current events. Looks like we're in the stage of Echad Mashiach, footsteps of Mashiach. Or interestingly enough, apropos of this week's parsha, which didn't speaking of a purification of a woman after she gives birth, Chavalat Mashiach, birth pangs of Mashiach. Now, that's why. So, what is the difference between the two exiles? Now, just before I explain the nature of the exiles, I'd like to give another comment. The word Adam, first human, really encompasses what are these different, what I'm about to say. Adam has the letters Aleph, Dalet, Mem in Hebrew, Mem Sofit. The Aleph stands for Adam, who committed the sin of eating from the fruit that Chava gave him. And what do you have? Yetzer Hara got induced with us eternally. That was one. Now, the Dalet stands for David. There was the potential in the time of the Davidic era, prior to the first exile, where we could have reached the potential. Mashiach could have come then, and we wouldn't have needed the four exiles: Babel, Persia, Greece, and the current one, Asa, Benham, Rome. And what does the Mem stand for? Mashiach. So since the first two didn't succeed, Adam didn't pass his test, the Davidic dynasty and the Jewish people as a whole didn't pass their various tests. So, excuse me, it comes down to Zman Mashiach. Now, what is the difference between the second exile, what's called the first four exiles, um, which is Bavel, and 70 years, and the current one, which is 1900 plus years, is this. The first one, um, there was the question of not learning Torah properly connected to the Shemitah years, but the main thing was three sin, and that's even that's a sin against God, not recognizing Israel. The other three were against God also. Svikas taming, spilling blood, Heliot Rayot, various times of sexual immorality, and avodah zarah, idol worship. So those were against God. So 70 years was sufficient. Now, for this, the destruction of the second temple and the Roman exile, Asim and Rome, which we're in, you see something very different. Why this length of time? Because they weren't committing averas in a normal sense. They were keeping all the mitzvahs, but there was total division among the people. They were seen as kohenim, baseless hatred. There was no love of one for the other, and none of the mitzvahs were done with love. This is when Moshe is going to speak later in Parshas Ki Savo and warns us of one of them, right in the middle of all that list of pasuk after pasuk of warnings and averas and punishments. We don't keep the mitzvahs. It's mentioned we do not observe the Torah with simcha. We did not deserve it. Love of our fellow man, love of God the way it should have been done, which is why we were in exile, still in exile. Though hopefully it is coming to end with the ingathering of the land. Now, that being the case, how does that tie into this parsha? And I'd like to refer to one of the Pesukim. And one of the first Pesukim says, the Be'ad Hashem el Moshe Lemor. Hashem spoke to Moshe to say, speak to the children of Israel. The Be'ad al Bnei Israel. Lama Ishech Tazria-Metzora Zakor Tamei Shavim Yamim and Nidasa du Tima. She shall be Tamei for a 7-day period, as during the days of her neither infirmity shall she be Tamei. Now, there's many explanations of this. What I want to reference on is not the literal one, but I want to go into a more what a remez illusion. So what are we talking about here when she's gathered for those 7 days? Who's the wife? We're not talking about a physical wife. Of course, now on the literal, on the Parashat, meaning the basic meaning, it's of course talking about a woman, a human woman. But when we talk about a wife, we're talking about Hashem's wife. Who's the Hashem's wife? Kehilat Israel, the Jewish people. And the Or Chaim brings a number of proofs for this. It says in Yeshayahu, for your husband is your maker, and conceive Hashem Noharim. It's further than like a wife of one's youth. The service Shet Lagoy, and it's written that's in Sierra Shirim. And there's similar pasuk explanations. And it says, when a woman shall emit seed, we're not talking physical seed, ovulation, or anything like that. What you're talking about means that the congregation as well emits a seeding of mitzvahs and good deeds. And it's telling us that if you do that and you complete that way, it will lead to one of the two ways of coming Mashiach. Now, the first, it means What is a seed? It's not a human seed in that sense. What it's talking about, baby, it's talking about we will, through our mitzvahs, Torah and mitzvahs, we will get the highest revelation of Hashem. Mashiach will come in on a cloud ridden by two angels, which means this is if we merit it. There's two basic ways Hashem, Mashiach can come. One is by we merit him, and it comes before the appointed time. The second one is the appointed time. We seem to be heading more towards that one, looking at the lateness of the day. Then we have a full redemption. Now, if we merit that, as I said, we will have an incredible experience. We'll be close, and it will come. Now, if we don't, our mitzvahs, even though we don't do enough to bring it early, will help and will fulfill things at the time of the coming of Mashiach. And when it talks about that if we don't merit it, we haven't gotten as close to Hashem as we should, we will go through 7 years of suffering. How do we get suffering? Because we say for 7 days, we're talking about she has to be redeemed and the suffering, but it's a human woman. Actually, has 7 days, every day is a year. That topic is used in various places in Navi and then the Chumash. So what does this say? So what does the 8th day? How does the 8th day removing of the orla, the foreskin? And it's explaining on a deeper level, we will then merit. Hashem will remove all the tumor, all the orla, all the spiritual impurity will be removed, and there will be a redemption. Even though, as I said, the coming of Mashiach will be somewhat more low key, and the oil is the impure. As I said, represents the impurities, forces of impurities. And that briefly is dealing. Now, what are the saras that make up the rest of the parsha? Forms of evil speech, because the thing that Hashem most hates is when we're not together, we're factionalized. They're seen as chinam, something we still must work on, and lashon hara is an aspect of that. Because if truly one respects one's fellow man or woman, one is not going to speak evil of them, either stuff that's true that can damage them, or even worse, mitzvah shamra, which means speech that's not even true, it's made up, or rechilas, where what does one do? One spreads stories from one to the other to create more animosity. Like they'll say, Reuven will say to Shimon, "Hey, you know what Yehuda said about you?" Or Rivka will say to Rachel, "Hey, you know what Leah said about you?" And then you're going to go to the other person and say, "Hey, she's mad at you." It's going to create multiple hatred, multiple things. And what it's telling us as we work our through, get more to Torah and mitzvahs, and as much as we can perfect ourselves from doing that, we're going to help bring Mashiach. Now, that is on the Parashat Tazria. Now, Parashat Metzora, this is based, by the way, from the Orach Chaim, the Arizal, Zohar, a number of different sources. And after the person gets saras, what does he have to do? He has to be, 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 he has to he has to purify himself. And after he goes through certain purification stages, then he's got to come with and this is going to be Derek Remez. What he's going to have to do is bring he should bring hyssop, red wool, 2 birds, a thing over which water will be. And what happens? One of the 2 birds is put is of an earthen basin, is its blood is spilled. Then the second bird is taken out, is takes all that stuff with the hyssop and the other stuff and sprinkles 7 times on a person and that will be part of the purification process. Now, very interestingly, who do these 2 birds represent? They represent Mashiach ben David and Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David. Now, Mashiach ben Yosef or Ephraim, is to help the ingathering of the exiles from around the world. And depending on what we do, he can either be meritorious, and they say they may be born within a year of each other, but it will be a period of, we see 7 days, will be 7, they will have to represent the period, and what do we say, of purification to elevate them so that they're at the right level, same as we saw before, similarly. And on then the second bird will be released out into the world. Sheikh Ben David, he's going to do spiritual battle, not physical battle with the nations, to show that all their ideas are false. And we will be liberated. Now, just a couple more thoughts on this. Why do we care? Why do we say that birds are Mashiach? Because it's a sport. It says from the cave, this is in Parshas Balak, a great and superior bird will grow, which will dominate the world, become royal authorities, according to Zohar, based on Parshas Balak. This is a hint to the redemption. Now, Meshach ben Ephraim will come first, but he will then disappear. He will die over living waters. But does it have to be that way? And what does that depend? That depends on us. If we do what we're supposed to and bring Mashiach by increasing our deeds and purifying ourselves now, not waiting till the appointed time for Mashiach to come, he does not have to die. Mashiach ben Yosef, or is known as Mashiach ben Ephraim. Only if we don't achieve that will he have to do it. Now, what is this bird going out into the field? One part of the Zohar brings it, in other words, will bring them to their ideas of justice, but it's also symbolic of Hashem is going to punish the 70 nations that made us suffer through all this long, long exile. Like this is why they said the deeds here will be greater than the deeds there. Remembered more than exile from Egypt, because liberation from Egypt, and at the Yam Suf, because only one nation only one nation will be punished, namely Egypt. Here all 70 nations will be done. And when it says the bird's going out, it has another meaning. In other words, the bird that's going out will be Hashem's, will be going out, where Hashem and his anger at the nations will go do battle against all of the nations. And there's much more that could be said, but this is a outline that could have an outline of, it gives a good outline of this whole topic. And as we're seeing events unfolding today, nobody knows how they connect exactly to how the Messianic, pre-Messianic era, Ekav Mashiach, Chavla Mashiach is going to play out when Mashiach comes, though it seems to be very close. But if we can truly fulfill that potential, either speed it up, or even if it's the appointed time now, we can still give it strength, we can still make it easier. And even then, the righteous Mashiach ben Ephraim will not have to die, and it can be far less violent development. I'd like to wish everybody a good Shabbos, Shabbat Shalom, and even though it's a few days ahead, Chodesh Tov, for the month of Iyar.